So, is the Bitcoin farm worth investing in Escape from Tarkov in patch 12.11? We know that last wipe things got a little weird with the Bitcoin farm. It did some weird stuff to the economy. They've reined it in, they've tinkered with it a little bit. And in this video, I want to go over if it's worth investing in, and actually, in my opinion, more importantly, some strategies for how to get there. I'm Jessekazam. Welcome back to another Escape from Tarkov video. If you like this video, think about dropping a like, commenting down below, or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. I stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. I'd love to have you stop by and say hey, but with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. So we'll have some kind of generic Tarkov B-roll rolling, so it's not just me staring at my empty Bitcoin farm the entire video, but the TLDR, as always, is yes, the Bitcoin farm is worth investing in if you play pretty regularly. You don't have to be, play this game 40 hours a week, but you have to play, a few days a week. And if you plan on sticking with Tarkov throughout the wipe, at each stage, it's going to take a pretty significant amount of time for the Bitcoin farm to pay off the initial investment. But once it does, it's passive income. You're printing money. It's absolutely going to be worth it. You just have to stick with the game and not just kind of hop off and stop playing in a month or two, especially since we know Tarkov wipes are lasting anywhere in the 6 to 8 month realm. Now, we are going to get into some numbers. I think, in my opinion, the point of this video is that the numbers are almost irrelevant because there's so many variables, but we will get into some numbers. We just have to go over some of these variables. There are an insane amount. The price of everything fluctuates. GPUs, everything for you need for the modules, like CPU fans, stuff like that. The price of fuel fluctuates. How many GPUs you find, how many components you find, how many components you craft. If you're crafting other things in the hideout, this is also assuming you're not missing a single Bitcoin, meaning that once your Bitcoin farm gets 3 Bitcoin, once it produces 3 Bitcoin, until you collect them, it's just going to be sitting there burning fuel, not making you profit. The price of Bitcoin itself, I don't see it varying as widely as it did last wipe, anywhere between 200K and 900K, but it has already shifted a little bit. So the price of Bitcoin itself, all of that stuff is going to pretty tremendously affect how profitable the Bitcoin farm is. So we are going to go through some numbers, but I think the important thing here is to know that it is worth it long term, and some strategies on how to get there without having to sink in as much money. So I'm going to start by assuming everything you need to get level 1 is kind of out of the equation. So all the other things like getting generator up and some of the other things in your hideout, those are used for so many other things, not just the Bitcoin farm. So I'm assuming you're, at the point where you're sitting at your Bitcoin farm and you're staring at level 1 and you're like, all right, what do I need to get level 1 constructed? Fuel is a huge factor, but in my calculations, I'm not including fuel. And here's why. It is another variable between which one you use, the price of it. Are you using it to then the empty cans to then craft other things? And additionally, at this point, if you've got a Bitcoin farm constructing or ready to construct, you have enough other things going on in your hideout that you should absolutely be crafting other things that cover the cost of fuel, or at least share in that cost of fuel. There are tons of crafts. There's tons of other guides out there. I might make an updated guide for 12.11, but there are so many other crafts that you can do and then get your thing that's found in raid and then sell that on the flea market and cover the cost of fuel. If you are just buying fuel to fuel the Bitcoin farm, you have nothing else crafting in your hideout and it's close to fully maxed, you are missing out on so much profit. So that's a variable I'm removing. There is a YouTuber, Airwing Marine. He put out a video about the Bitcoin farm, assuming fuel costs in it. Really great calculations. Some of his pricing is already a little outdated because the market is wild, but I definitely recommend watching that video. His content is great. And lastly, before we dive into the numbers, I have to tell you what I'm assuming everything costs. So right now, GPUs are about 350K. We know that over time they will increase, then they'll kind of peak, and then they will even fall as most of the player base has all the GPUs that they need. And then Bitcoin is currently sitting around the 210 to 220. I'm factoring in at 220. It fell a little bit. It might come back up. This is once again kind of the cost of doing this because we can never really know exactly where it's going to go, but it's at around 220. So that being said, you're sitting in your hideout, you're staring at level 1 Bitcoin farm. Right now, it's going to cost you about 950K to get all the things you need, the drills, power cords, that kind of stuff. And then if you have 0 GPUs, it's going to cost you about 3.5 million rubles to get all your GPUs in. So you're at about 4.5 million rubles roughly all in. At that point, you're going to be producing a Bitcoin every 29 to 30 hours. As a little caveat here, if you want to keep up to date with this information, and another ginormous variable is if Battlestate Games changes any of this, if they change the price of Bitcoin dramatically, or if they change how long it takes to produce them, which they have changed multiple times in a single wipe. Use the Escape from Tarkov wiki. That's what I'm using to pull current information. They've got profitability charts, the hours per coin, and all that kind of stuff in there at each level. Definitely check the Escape from Tarkov wiki out as well. I will link that down below. So staring at that Bitcoin farm, you've got about 4.5 million invested in that. It's about 30 hours per coin. That's going to take you about 26 days to pay off that 4.5 million investment. And then you're going to be sitting at about 5 million profit a month after that. Because you're going to be able to make about 24 Bitcoins a month. You sell all that, it's about 5 million profit depending on the price of Bitcoin. So once again, that doesn't include fuel, but you can share that load amongst your whole hideout. It's pretty obvious to see it's worth it. It's just going to take time and a big initial investment. Not everybody's got 4.5 million rubles to just plunk down at one time. And then once you want to move on to level 2, the cost to set up the level 2 Bitcoin farm is about 1 million additional rubles on stuff. And then to go from 10 to 25 GPUs, that's about 5.2 million rubles in GPUs. So then it's going to be another 23 days to break even. But then you're going to be around 7 to 8 million rubles a month in profit. And you're sitting at about 20 hours per coin there. So another nice little chunk of time to kind of pay that all off. But then you're making more money, but it's a much more significant investment initially because of all the additional Bitcoin, around 6.5 million. Then, the real kind of big next step is going up to level 3. In order to get level 3 Bitcoin farm, you need solar panels. So before we talk about that, it's going to be about 1.5 million rubles in stuff, CPU fans, tubes, all that kind of stuff. To go from 25 to 50 GPUs, that's going to be about 8 to 9 million right there. And then solar panel costs about 10 million rubles on its own with the AESAs, the military cables, all that stuff, and the 50,000 rubles. It's worth noting that solar farm then makes your entire hideout more profitable because all the other crafts are still consuming that 50% less fuel. But, there's really no reason to go all in on solar unless you're going up to the level 3 Bitcoin farm. With that initial investment of about 20 million rubles just to go from level 2 to level 3, it's going to take about 53 days to pay that off. So then you can kind of see how, level 1, it's going to take 26 days. Level 2, it's going to take 20 days. Level 3, it's going to take 50 days. It takes a long time at each step to really pay off. But after that, you're in that like 11 million rubles per month, 11 to 12, depending on the price of the Bitcoin. So you're sitting at about 13 to 14 hours per coin there. Another really quick thing to say that it's worth noting that unless you really just have the money, when you upgrade to the next level of your farm, you're really going to want to push for as many GPUs as you can. You can do it as slow as you want, but the profitability of it is really not going to increase if you go from level 1 to level 2 and then just go from 10 to 12 GPUs. You're really going to want to be pushing to max out each next step. Now, what I really wanted to talk about now that it's through the numbers and all the kind of prefaces that are necessary to talk about this, I want to talk about how those numbers are great, but like we said, with how many variables, they're almost immediately irrelevant, except for to prove that the Bitcoin farm is almost always going to be profitable. How we get there is important because I think I can't assume that almost every single player in the game has 4 million and then an additional 6 million and then an additional 20 million at each step to just invest in all those things. It's really important to know that you can do this gradually and still make money. And for example, the way I normally max out my Bitcoin farm is I will front the money for level 1 Bitcoin farm, and I'll figure out a way to front the money for the first 10 GPUs. A good scav raid these days, you can come out with 250 to 350,000 rubles. Do something like that. If I'm not actively hurting for money, I'll just ignore that scav raid, basically, sell all that stuff, buy a GPU, set it aside if I don't have space or something like that. So try to self-fund the first 10. A lot of times what I do is if I get to level 40, which is now 42, and get the thick weapons case, I'll sell that on the flea market for 5-6 million rubles, buy GPUs with that. Do whatever you want, self-fund. And then what I do is I take a hit on my profitability immediately, and every time my Bitcoin farm produces 2 Bitcoin, I buy another GPU. or 1 Bitcoin and I had a good day, I buy another GPU, buy another. I do it slowly over time. I let the Bitcoin farm fund itself. It's going to take a longer time for me to turn a profit, but I don't have to be stressing out about farming 10 million rubles, 5 million rubles to get all the GPUs or buy all this, or, oh no, GPUs are up now and I have to buy 7 at a time. Like, I kind of let it fund itself, and that allows me to just kind of play the game, and then I push it to the next level. And then, you know, it normally takes me a while to get to a point where I feel like I can do the solar farm and that big 20 million ruble sink into everything else. But it doesn't have to be so binary and so just like I have to invest all this at one time. So that's one strategy. That's the strategy I use. Let the Bitcoin farm fund itself. Additionally, if you just use the wiki and see all these things that you need, CPU fans, power supplies, all this stuff isn't that rare in the game. The problem is if we're not saving those things, we get to the Bitcoin farm, we really want to upgrade the Bitcoin farm, so we end up spending money on all of it. If you've got some of this stuff, you can craft some of this stuff, you can find this stuff, throw it in a junk box. That is going to significantly reduce your initial investment by being able to just like have this stuff and throw it in. And then the big one, the last one, is you got to know where the GPUs are. Farming them is going to be, with how common they are on Interchange, farming them is probably going to be a much better use of your time than farming up all the money, unless you're just like really, really good at the game. That being said, I did want to take just a few seconds for people that don't know. Interchange is kind of the best place to find GPUs. I have found them on Shoreline. This wipe, it's much rarer. You need expensive keys. They don't really spawn in computers anymore. Interchange is really kind of the place to be. There's a lot of spawns, a lot more spawns that people don't know about. This isn't like a full spawn guide. I just wanted to, if you're struggling. So here's the Ollie side. Here's the idea side of the mall. This is mapgenie.io. If we zoom in on the Ollie side, coming in from either side, the front or the back, there's Texo, which is down here. This can spawn GPUs. If you go up the escalator, you're in Tech Light, which is, these are like the danger zones. A lot of people are going to be here, but if you can find a GPU, they don't need to be found in RAID for the Bitcoin farm. You can shove it in your secure container. So Texo, Tex Light in the furniture store right here on one of the kind of cabinets can be a GPU spawn. Right down this hallway on the right is Rasmussen. There's GPU spawns in here. If you keep moving down this hallway past Kiba, there is a place called German. There is a GPU spawn in there. Keep going down the same hallway till you get to the hexagon on the left, TTS. There's a GPU spawn in this room as well. You kind of keep moving down the hallway here to Idea, and there is a GPU spawn on, I believe it's register 10 here in the cash registers. And then you keep going down, and to the right, this office area, there is more than one GPU spawn in here. And then if you were to move out the back of Idea at the power station, I have spawned at power station, ran inside, and picked up 2 GPUs before. So there's more than one GPU spawn in there. So once again, this isn't like a full map guide or anything, but if we work from the Ollie side, there's a pretty solid run. If you pop something like an SJ6, Texo, Tech Light, Furniture, Rasmussen, German, TTS, Idea cash registers, Idea office, and the power station. I'm sure that there's going to be people in the comments even throwing some GPU spawns that I missed on Interchange, but that is just there to give you kind of like a start, a beginning understanding of where you can find them. SJ6s and there are other stimulants that give you a lot of stamina if you want to go farm them that way. And then Interchange is just really a great money-making map. There's a ton of computers, filing cabinets, PvP, you know, kill a loot. There's a lot of stuff there. So bring a nice kit. Try and find a good farm for some GPUs and see if you can grab them that way. So that's kind of it. That's kind of the top and bottom of it. I know this video is a little bit longer, but I just think it's important to give more than just the numbers. We have to talk about how the numbers are really just a part of the story because of how many variables there are. I don't want this guide to only be viable for 3 days. You know, we broke down the numbers showing that it is profitable, but I think learning some strategies, thinking farther ahead, knowing that, you know, getting up to level 3 Bitcoin farm is not something that most of the player base is going to be able to do in a few weeks. This is going to take a few months. I really wanted to talk about that you can kind of be thinking ahead. You can go get some GPUs. You can find these components that you need. You can let the GPUs pay for themselves with the Bitcoin farm. And you can max this out without feeling like you have to plop down 5, 6, 7 million rubles at a time. So I hope this helped. I hope this kind of updated you on where the Bitcoin farm stands in patch 12.11, and hopefully it is much more supplemental to the economy of Tarkov, this wipe, and not like this huge kind of eyesore in it. So hopefully this helped. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and hopefully this can help you make a ton of money in Escape from Tarkov. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to check out this video. If you liked the video, think about dropping a like, commenting down below, or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. Like we said before, I stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. I'd love to have you stop by and say hey. Thank you again for stopping by, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.